Hi, welcome to Culturally Determined. I'm your host, Arya Cohen-Wade, and my guest today is Sarah Wang. Sarah, could you please introduce yourself?
I'm Sarah Wang. I'm the author of New Skin, which comes out May 12th. It's my debut novel. I'm a writer and editor, and I also teach creative writing.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today, and congratulations on the novel. I enjoyed it a lot. A link to it will be in the show notes for people who want to check it out. And by the time this posts, it will be, available wherever fine books are sold. So I assume you have like a one paragraph summary of when people ask what your book is about. So what is your book about?
First, thanks for having me, and thanks for reading my entire book.
I did. I read the whole thing.
Thank you. People don't have to read the whole book, by the way. You can just buy it and have it on your bookshelf. It's a pretty object.
Right. It's a great cover. Congratulations to whoever the cover designer was. I think it's gonna catch people's eyes, and it looks cool too. Yeah. So buy one, put it on your mantelpiece. One to carry around with you.
But yes, if you want to read it, that would be a bonus. It is a story about a young woman in her mid-20s who is estranged from her mother, but she's pulled back to Los Angeles to care for her mom, who is an ailing, botched plastic surgery addict. Um, Once she's back home, she kind of gets pulled into her mother Fanny's string of medical catastrophes, one after another. And while she's trying to kind of save her mother from being botched, from death, from near death, her mother behind her back goes and auditions on a reality show called America's Beauty Extreme, which is a competition reality show for botched plastic surgery victims who all compete against each other for one prize only, which is reconstructive surgery. So, a lot of drama, a lot of trouble. The FBI gets involved. There's black market Botox. Um, it's a lot of fun, and I don't know, what did you think?
Well, I enjoyed it, and it made me laugh. And I don't know what I was expecting exactly when I started to read the book, but it's definitely not like it's not a stereotypical first novel in some like sense of like a young person coming to learn more about themselves or something like that. Like it's wacky, it's satirical. It's about a lot of it's about reality TV, which I don't know. I guess maybe that's a growing thing that novelists are taking us. This is such a part of our culture. But do you think this is in one genre in particular, or is that uh is that too simple?
I'm someone who's kind of oblivious to things like genre. I don't really think about it when I'm writing. I read a lot of different things. I write more kind of somber short stories and fiction too. This is kind of a romp, and it's, as you say, satirical and funny and outrageous, but I write more kind of serious stuff too. Not that this isn't serious, but I also write a lot of like political essays and things like that. So, as someone who writes across genres, I also write poetry and experimental stuff, but, yeah, I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing when I'm doing it, and
Hmm.
also, I think it changes, it's changed a lot since I began. Um, yeah, but of course, like, with marketing, there has to be some kind of, "This is
Right.
literary fiction, this is satire."
Right. Okay, that makes sense. It's hard to describe it maybe in a one-line marketing speak kind of thing, and I guess people have to read it themselves to get the full effect. But so when you started this, well, did you always see this as a novel, or when these themes or the idea of the plot or the characters they come first? How did like what was the genesis of this?
I feel like this book in its final form, has been a process of mutation. because it's changed just so much. It's it's grown tumors. I've had to cut stuff off, surgically implant. I'm trying to take these metaphors as far as I can go. But yeah, it's been really an evolving thing, which has been quite difficult and lengthy in terms of process. But I do think that with the first book, especially a book that's not kind of like, I don't know, like you say, what maybe what you were referencing is a kind of auto fiction that's like tracking someone's life in a very realistic way. Like, I got a job at a bookstore after I finished college. Then I had this serious relationship. Then we broke up. Then. So, in terms of plotting, I had to do a lot of work and rewriting and stuff like that. So, it's been quite a long process.
Mhm. So did the plastic surgery part or the reality TV part, or which came first, or did they come at the same time? Because those are both big, big things that I guess could, if there was one theme to a novel, it could be one of either of those. So how did that come to you to include both of these things?
The plastic surgery came first. It was pretty early, actually. The mother always had some kind of botched plastic surgery. And that idea came to me over 10 years ago. I want to say maybe even 15 or more.
Mhm.
And so, plastic surgery back then was definitely not what it is today in terms of popularity, in terms of people getting fillers and people, even we know, getting Botox is not unusual. So I think back then when I first conceived of it, it was a very different thing. It was definitely not zeitgeist. It was kind of relegated to, I think of that scene in Brazil when she's getting her face stretched. Have you seen that
Yeah,
old
yeah, yeah.
movie?
Uh-huh.
So I would definitely say it was an outlier in culture. It was more like freaky back then when I originally conceived of it. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like maybe you thought of John Travolta's really bad moded hair plugs or something back then. That was kind of what was happening in plastic surgery. So in my original conception, yeah, it was more of a freaky thing, not like an everyday thing.
Hmm.
And the reality TV came a little bit later, but it also came before the boon, which in my experience happened during COVID and after. That's when I started watching more reality TV. So I guess I'm pleasantly surprised, and it's probably a good thing that these two things are more in conversation now and kind of zeitgeisty. But definitely when I was started writing it, it was not what it is now.
Hmm. So why was plastic surgery a theme that you wanted to explore?
I've always liked body horror. I love Cronenberg, all of his body horror stuff. I am also deep into psychoanalysis. And so for me, the basis of Fanny, the mother's face, being, unrecognizable to her daughter after she gets a facelift, her inaugural facelift, when her daughter Lindley is 8 years old. It was more of an idea of a metaphor for this kind of um, uncanniness that Freud locates as something that's familiar but unrecognizable. Or is it
Uh-huh.
the opposite? Is it recognizable but unfamiliar?
I
One
don't
of those.
I don't know. I haven't read my Freud. And sort of like the type of plastic surgery that Fanny gets is not the kind of celebrities are getting. It's like back alley or basement, illegal, and with like questionable substances and equipment and stuff like that. Is that so? Yeah, why was it that part of not what the celebs are getting, and or even not what maybe like a normal person would get at this point? Why was it this sort of like underground part of it that attracted you?
Well, I think my book, you could look at the cover copy and think it's only about plastic surgery and reality TV, which of course, those are aspects of the novel. But I always tell people that those are just the rooms that everything takes place in. And so what's happening in the room is class analysis, talking about deeper political issues like undocumented immigrant subjectivity, the labor of marginalized women and immigrants, um, and debt, intergenerational debt, and epigenetic trauma, stuff like this. So, in talking about these things, plastic surgery, cosmetic procedures, you know, I think what people want is not so different from, what we want from each other. Someone who's rich and someone who's poor may want the same thing: safety, to be loved, to be seen, to reconcile with their family. And also, in terms of consumerism, um, just because someone is poor doesn't mean they may not want a Chanel bag. But the difference is access, right? If you are poor, you cannot buy a Chanel bag, or maybe it would take you a lot more work to be able to afford one. But we have these kind of cottage industries like fake bags on Canal Street that have existed forever, these Chinese bootlegs. And so with cosmetic surgery too, now we're seeing, back alley Botox fillers, and also, unfortunately, the medical risks that come with illicit procedures. And that's also an aspect of class is, people who are poor always take more risks in life, taking risks in terms of, you may not be able to pay your electric bill, so you come home hoping that they haven't turned the electricity off, or, hoping that you'll get the next gig so that you can feed your family. Or in this case, because the topic is cosmetic surgery, getting illicit fillers because that's what you can afford.
So I guess let's talk a little bit about the character. So it's narrated by Lindley, the daughter, and the relationship with Fanny, the mother, is the main thread of the book, I guess. And Fanny is a very funny character and is sort of like a master manipulator, and is able to get her way through all sorts of means that are funny to see as they unfold. Well, I guess two questions. One, why did you decide to have this be a first person narration? Was it always like that? And two, like, or just maybe this is the question. Just talk more about Fanny and her character.
Well, yeah, Lindley is narrating, I think, a few different reasons. I myself am the daughter of, a single mother, and my relationship with my mother is in some ways has inspired the book. And so it was easy for me to narrate from Lindley's perspective because it's has been my perspective. But also there's something about Fanny that's inaccessible. And that's the mystery of her character. But in some ways it's also about how, as children of parents, they are always inaccessible to us in some way, even though they're the person in life, they're the people in life who supposedly we know best, right? We've known them the longest since the very beginning. But Fanny is Fanny's in some ways the most powerful character and also the most confusing and inaccessible. We don't really know why she does everything that she does, but I think that's also her power.
Hmm. So a number of the characters are Asian American, and one of the surgeries that I believe Fanny has done is this eyelid surgery to make her features look more Caucasian, or correct me if I'm getting any of the details wrong. Um, and then a lot of the secondary characters are Asian American as well. Um, well, can you talk about the cultural valence of like plastic surgery and this trying to appear more white with skin whitening and stuff like that, and how did that affect how you view these things?
So Fanny immigrated to the US from Taiwan when she was an adult. And she says early on in the book that she started getting these procedures, which she becomes addicted to after she moved to the US and started and began to realize how different she looked from everyone else. And I think for her, that is the inciting incident, her entry into America. And again, it's a little unclear exactly what she's doing. She's not explicitly trying to look white or consciously, but there is this kind of mark that she feels she has when she comes to the US. But it's interesting because I think the topics right now around cosmetic procedures in Asia, and I think Korea specifically, I'm referencing, because that's kind of the center right now of where all this stuff is happening, um, is that they say that they're not trying to mimic or become white through these different procedures. And it is true that 50% of Asians do have double eyelids. I was born with double eyelids. It's not that zero Asians have it, and we're trying to, adopt features from another ethnicity. Um, However, double eyelid surgery was popularized in, I wouldn't say popularized, it was done more in Korea during the Korean War when an American surgeon began giving comfort women double eyelid surgery so that they would be less threatening to
Oh
the
wow.
American soldiers who raped them,
Hmm.
basically. So there are different narratives, and we have to hold all of them um, as possibilities. There isn't one answer.
Hmm. So the characters live in Los Angeles or the Los Angeles area. Um, and did you grew up in Los Angeles also, right?
I did.
Do you see this as like a Los Angeles novel or a California novel? Um, the main character is sort of like trying to leave and go to New York for a graduate program, and you live in New York now. So how did you think about that, or did you see this as a LA novel?
Definitely. It's definitely an LA novel. It's where I've lived most of my life. I was born there. I just know it so intimately. Um, but it's also not your typical LA novel. I think people who are not from a place, they have this idea of what that place is and what defines it. And I even have a friend who is in LA now, and I think we were texting, and I said, "How's LA?" And he said, "It's confusing."
Uh-huh.
Because LA is comprised of so many different parts. You can be at the beach and it can be one thing, but there's also different parts of the beach. There's Santa Monica, there's Venice, there's, Marina del Rey, whatever. These are all very different experiences. Um, you can be in East Hollywood where it's a little Armenia and it can feel like a ethnic enclave. So the LA that I'm depicting is specifically on the east side in the San Gabriel Valley, where there's a lot of Chinese immigrants and Asian diaspora. And I don't think that that's really a part of LA that has been depicted in literary fiction, to my knowledge.
Hmm. Is that the area where you grew up?
Yeah, it's close to the area I grew up. It's where I hung out a lot and where I hang out a lot now.
Hmm.
where I grew up is a little more boring in terms of a little suburb.
Okay. And so the Lindley's desire to escape. So she starts off, or sort of like right before the novel, she's living in Oregon, or Washington State, and a medical crisis, her mother's medical crisis, draws her back, and then she has been accepted into a graduate program in New York, and so she's like getting ready to leave. I don't know. There's like the it's weird in America that we have like there's two like cultural capitals that so a lot of people like switch between them, or have a stereotype about them, or the people would one hate the other, or the people want to like desperately want to escape and get back to the other, or think their problems will be solved if they go to the other one. Why did you have Lindley like preparing to leave to go to New York?
Well, don't want to be a coastal elitist or anything, but Lindley, she always wants to, her dream has always been to get away from her satanic mother, um, and go as far away as she can in America, because this is a novel about America. Um, But I think going to like, this other big city, which in some ways I think is and feels like a bigger city than LA in terms of how international it is, in terms of like, an urban center, definitely it's a bigger city than LA. So it's kind of this dream of leaving home, leaving for somewhere bigger and better where there's more possibility. And I'm not saying that there couldn't be any more possibility in like any other big city in America. But, you know, Lily also has this, she also has a plan to maybe go to something like an Ivy League college. And well, that does only exist in New York. Um,
Mhm.
but, Lindley, as a second generation kid, has these aspirations of education. So those are all reasons.
So one of the stylistic choices you make is that you have untranslated phrases in, is it Mandarin, or tell me, that the characters speak to each other, that are set off in italics, but the reader such as me who doesn't know this language has to sort of guess, or maybe Google or something, what the characters are saying. Why did you decide to do it that way?
Well, I think among the things that I believe my novel to be about, one of the things is language. And I love novels and texts that writing that deals with language. And I think I deal with language in this novel in different ways. One is the characters speak to each other sometimes in Chinese, not that often actually. Um, ESL. There's also gibberish, and all of my writing is political, and this one is not an exception.
Hmm.
I think of these kind of different types of language in my novel to be a political act, a kind of act of resistance, and to also transmit these other ways of speaking and communicating as um, as valid as other languages that we speak here in America, including gibberish. And one of my characters, I think I say, she was the Voynich manuscript of language or something like that.
Yes, yeah. So the gibberish is interesting. I guess there's sort of a growth, an outbreak of gibberish among some of the characters who are in this reality show, and then you also have this a couple examples of, it's called Shanzai. Is that how it's pronounced? Which is like, um, well, you describe it. It appears on T-shirts and stuff like that. Yeah. So what's your interest in in that, and yeah, the not to get into many spoiler territory, but like what is going on with those characters speaking gibberish?
I think the gibberish for me was a fun way to kind of explode language and move it into this other place beyond sense. Although its expression, the expression of gibberish has a function and a vibe. I mean, it's ridiculous, it's outrageous, it's beyond sense. But in some way, I have had readers tell me that so Clarice is this initial character on the reality TV show for botched victims, who begins to start speaking gibberish and her language begins devolving and deteriorating. I have had people tell me that they can understand everything she's saying. And
Okay.
I do have to tell you that the way that I wrote that, which I haven't talked about before, this is the first time I'm talking
Okay, we have
about it.
an exclusive here.
Yes, exclusive to Culturally Determined. That her dialogue is real, and I actually wrote real dialogue for her, and I gibberished it. I put it through this gibberish extractor.
Huh, okay.
So it really does, when people tell me I understand everything she says, it's true. They're unscrambling the gibberish with their eyes.
Okay, that's interesting. So so maybe there's, well, I mean, do you see this book as sort of having some sort of, yeah, you mentioned the Voynich manuscript, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is this work from the Middle Ages that is in a invented language that no one has ever been able to decipher or crack, and it's possible that there's all these drawings of plants and stuff, but maybe it is total gibberish, the language there, or maybe it just hasn't been cracked yet, decoded yet. And I wondered at a certain point, it's sort of implied that maybe one character is like poisoning other characters on the reality show to get them out of competition, and so they're all sort of like going crazy, and so they'll get voted off. Do you see this book as sort of having like a mystery in the middle that readers can crack, or something like that?
I mean, I I would like readers to interpret the text and the characters and the language in any way they want. And I think that's what I'm aiming for, is this space where you're not sure what's real and what's not, and different people will have different ideas about what they believe. Because some of the plot actually happens in a dreamscape, and there's a drug scene where my main character, Lindley, does DMT and has all these hallucinations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, what she dreams and what she hallucinates is not real. It's part of the imagination, but a lot of readers, I would say most readers from what I've been hearing so far, just take it as truth. Like she hallucinated it, so it happened, which is pretty um shocking to me. But then again, these are people on NetGalley and Goodreads. I don't want to diss those people, but I'm not sure if
Okay. Well, do you? So that's interesting. Yeah. So there's like a trip part of this in which some things are revealed to Lindley, but yeah. So from your perspective, is not a revelation of like authorial truth or something? Where did you mean that to be ambiguous, or did you mean that to be just a symbolic scene, or how do you think about something like that?
so I tried to plant this kind of unknowing in the first chapter. It's just like the Voynich manuscript we referenced. Some people believe it's just gibberish and there's nothing to be decoded. And in another faction, cryptologists have been working maybe their whole lives to try to figure out what this language is. So what is it? Well, we can't really say. It's not one, it's not the other, it's not both. We don't know. But so in the very first chapter, I have this urination dream that
Right.
happens where where somebody pees somewhere, and it's just a dream, and she herself doesn't know if she actually did it or not. She was like, I had this weird dream that I peed, and I don't know if it actually happened or not. And we don't know either. She doesn't know, and we don't know. But from the beginning, I wanted to introduce people to this idea of the dreamscape as somewhere where it can hold truth, but also it might not necessarily be true. And that carries over with, you know, all the other things with the language, with the hallucinations, with the things that we as humans may not be able to know or gain access to in terms of like our histories, our parents' stories, things that we just can never know but really want to know.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'm glad you brought up the detail with the dream about peeing, which made me laugh. But okay, so do you would you consider your narrator an unreliable one, or how do you think about that?
No, I don't think anyone is unreliable in my story, to be honest.
Okay,
A lot of people say that the mother character is unreliable, but she may be the most truthful person in the whole book, and we actually don't know. Um, yeah.
interesting. Do you reminded me? This is maybe perhaps literally 20 years ago. So I was perhaps like other young literary inclined men in the 90s and 2000s. I got really into David Foster Wallace, and so strangely, I read Infinite Jest when I was in high school, and didn't understand a lot of it, but just I got through it as a like 14 or 50-year-old. And then Wallace was doing a signing at the Strand in 2006 that I went to. So I'd never, seen him in person before. And there's all this, so like there's online message boards and theories about like what really happens in Infinite Jest, which has all these confusing plot lines. And so I like went to see him. So I was like 23 or 24 to get my book signed, and then I asked him like what really happened in the book, like is like in the plot of the sense, like is there like a secret or something that the reader can decode. I was just like, well, what really happened with this and that? And he said something like, I never really thought about it. And I didn't ask a follow-up because I was very nervous, and then that was it. um so okay, so that was a long-winded way of saying, like, is there something that really happened in this book? Is it, like, do you know what it all really happened, or is it up to the reader to decide, or how do you even think about that when you're writing?
Unlike David Foster Wallace, I know exactly why everything happens in my book. I know. And I'm not going to tell you.
Okay, fair enough.
Not just you. I don't mean you. I mean the
Right.
reader. I'm not telling anyone what I know unless you pay me enough money or unless you want to fly me to Korea where I can get this what is her name? The Mother Kardashian,
Oh, yes, I can't think of it, but no, but yes, okay.
whatever her name is.
Yeah.
She just had this I think it's called a deep plane facelift or whatever, where they take your entire face off. I believe. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm
Uh-huh.
wrong. But I believe they take your entire face off and then put it back on again.
Uh-huh.
So unless you want to offer me one of these face off, face on procedures or give me a lot of money, I'm not telling you anything.
Okay. Well, any readers out there, yeah, maybe this would be like a contest for readers. Like if the secret will be revealed if they offer to give you deplane facial surgery in Korea and pay for it, then like you'll eat lunch with them afterwards and reveal all the secrets of the book. Okay, but that's interesting because 20 odd years ago when I was into all this stuff, like there were these deep theories about the book and what it like really was saying, and there's these little clues, and the idea that just like it's turned out that like everyone alive really likes following little clues and talking about it online and trying to figure out like what it all means. And this comes through in both like Taylor Swift fans and like QAnon. It's just like we like looking for little clues and trying to find the truth. But whether I guess in reality, like in real life, there is some truth, but in a novel, there's not necessarily some uh real truth that happened, or I don't know, but maybe that's yeah, I don't know. um so one other thing I was interested in is how did you choose the names of the characters, and did those have significance in some way? Because Fanny's real name is not Fanny. That's a nickname. How did you make those decisions about character names?
Well, Lindley is actually from, it's like a Chinese name. So I wanted her to have a Chinese name. She is someone who was born in the US, but I wanted her to have a Chinese name. And Fanny, her name is actually, her real name is Fan Ju. But through kind of an act of forced renaming when she was working in a factory in Taiwan, her American bosses couldn't pronounce Fan Ju. So they made her choose a name that was more recognizable to them. So, since before she stepped onto American soil, she was already subject to colonialism in this way.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, a lot of my characters have names that hold a lot of meaning. Like a character, his name is DB, and we find out that DB actually stands for Dolly Batista, and he's half Filipino. But his name at work is actually DB Kennedy. And we find out that Kennedy is a name that his parents gave him because they thought that it would give him success in America because he is biracial. He's half white. He's half Romanian and half Filipino. And so they thought if they gave him the Kennedy surname, it would function as a beard for his whiteness. Um, but Dolly, I think, is very interesting because overseas and especially in Asia, there's always been this westward gaze for like pop culture and music. And we find out that Dolly's mom loves Dolly Parton. And so she names him after Dolly Parton, which is a pretty embarrassing name for a young American boy. But it's actually very common. I have a friend in Thailand who loves Santa. And so his name is Santa. He's renamed himself Santa because he loves Santa. And I don't think there's, an understanding of how silly that name may sound to other people. But I think it's fun too. There's many names to be had. I wish my name was something more fun than Sarah, to be
Well,
honest.
I couldn't help but think about this because so Sarah, that's I guess a Western name, or it comes from the Old Testament, and Lindley is not a name I was familiar with. So why do you think Fanny named her daughter Lindley, and uh, yeah, and why Lindley? What appealed to you about that name in particular?
Um, I think it has a lot of meaning. And don't ask me what that meaning is because I have forgotten. I know Li means like beauty or something like that. Don't quote me on this. Yeah, so I was looking up like different Chinese characters and what things would mean.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't know, but I think Fanny, she's not someone who is consciously trying to assimilate in any kind of way. Her signals are more mixed.
Hmm.
But Lindley is like it attaches this child that Fanny has in America to Taiwan, to China. So it's a link, a bridge that Fanny herself has lost, because her name is now Fanny. Everyone calls her Fanny, but she's able to kind of like maintain that bridge through Lindley.
Hmm. That might be about all the questions I had. Is there anything else you want to mention about the book or anything else before we wrap up?
Just want to say that, it's funny. I hope it's funny. Um, it's a very funny book.
Yes, I was laughing. I agree. It is a funny book.
And it deals with kind of silly things like botched plastic surgery and gibberish and reality TV, but it also deals with a lot of more serious issues. Like a lot of the characters are undocumented or formerly undocumented. There's a threat of ICE constantly throughout the novel. There's human trafficking. There's, it's mainly about the lives of immigrant women and class and, you know, a strong bond between a mother and daughter unconventional familial structures that are kind of resisting this nuclear family um, kind of ideal.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun and funny.
I do want to ask about the stuff with ice. So the way publishing works, you probably had this manuscript finished more than a year ago, and there certainly were ice raids before the second Trump administration started, but they like hypercharged it and made it much more horrible, and also they were targeting Los Angeles last year. Was that always part of it, and then the news like took over, or did you add that stuff as the horrors of the second Trump administration became more evident?
That stuff was always in there. And also, Fanny herself, we find out, is formerly undocumented. And that was always a part of her character. The story of how she became, legitimized in the eyes of, immigration or the law in the US. But
Hmm.
it was always a story about, yeah, the lives of undocumented people and also their children, the next generation, which is, I think in this book is like the future of America. And not only in this book, but also in real life. There's another character, Vivi, in there, who is also a second generation immigrant. She's the child of an undocumented person. And, she goes to Yale Law and she's, people like Vivi and Lindley, who is hopefully still going to go to school to work with women in community centers or in some kind of, social work context. We're not sure yet. Um, yeah, this is kind of the future of America.
Okay, so this is a a funny satirical novel with a lot of wacky stuff happening, but there's also things ripped from the headlines. I guess that maybe you saw coming before they manifested in our horrible reality, and reality TV. And hey, the president of the country is a former reality TV game show host, so that is part of our actual reality. The book is New Skin. It's a novel. People can buy it all over the place. So if people want to follow you or learn more about your work, where would you direct them?
I suppose the evil website Instagram, which I only joined very reluctantly less than a year ago. My handle there is Diconoclast, which I'm very proud of myself for inventing. It's my favorite portmanteau of my own creation of a daikon radish and iconoclast. So look for me, Diconoclast. I believe if you type daikon the radish, I'm the first thing that comes up.
Okay, that's good. I don't know if that's search engine optimization, but you've claimed that, yeah. And so and a link in the show notes will be uh, to that. And you're going on tour with the book, so people could see you in person. Okay, well, Sarah, thanks for coming on Culturally Determined. Thanks to all the listeners out there. I encourage them to give a positive rating to the show, tell their friends, do whatever other thing they want to do. But yeah, and buy the book. And so thanks to everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.